All stories have a plot, and all plots have an underlying structure. The structure underpinning how we move through the story is called the story's narrative arc. A narrative arc is like a graph of a story that shows excitement and engagement in the story over time. The horizontal axis, the x-axis, is labelled time. This shows the time over which the story is happening. The 0 point is the very beginning of the story, before anything has happened yet. Tension is a story word for engagement/excitement. So we write tension on the vertical axis, our y-axis. Each change in excitement or engagement is shown on the y-axis. These changes happen as story events happen, and they help us keep both the story and our reader in mind. There are different ways to divide up narrative arc, but we're going to use the 5-phase model. The 5 phases of narrative arc are the beginning, rising tension, conflict, falling tension, and then the resolution. Beginning is the setup phase of narrative arc. This is where you introduce your characters and setting. It has a small amount of engagement and a small number of events, so it's shown with a slight rise in tension over time. Rising tension is the part of the story where you introduce a problem, motivation, or both. The line moves up because having a problem creates interest for the reader and increases the tension. Conflict comes next. This is a barrier, big complication or bigger problem. For instance, if the rising tension was introduced by the main character needing to raise money to pay for a big expense, the conflict could be a theft, losing her job, or an unexpected expense. Conflict is shown as a sharp peak in the tension. It is often the defining event in the story when the characters are faced with their make or break moment. Next is falling tension. This is where there is some kind of solution to the conflict. We can see a small dip in the line. From here, the situation can resolve and end with the resolution where we get a tied-off ending. Alternatively, there may be a slight hiccup with the solution which gives us another small bump in the tension. For example, a couple may overcome their major conflict and get together, which leads to falling tension, until an ex-partner enters the picture and there is a misunderstanding which creates a small bump in the tension. The resolution is where the story ends. But the tension line is higher than before because even though the story has ended, the ending is still more engaging than the story starting point. Narrative arc is a big picture tool. Mapping your story to the 5 phases, then plotting it out on a narrative arc is valuable during your planning stages. It is also useful for checking how your story is moving along to ensure you're keeping the reader's interest. Some people use narrative arc to map out individual chapters. This can work well because most chapters should generally have at least rising tension and conflict phases. Narrative arc can also be used for non-fiction work and even feature articles.